The Treasure Valley's original all-sports station. Sports Radio 95.3 FM and 1350 AM. The Ticket.
Is this new bumper, Hippie, surprising us today?
One of our streaming bumpers.
Okay. Welcome back.
Interesting.
Idaho Sports Talk, Prater on the ball game. Appreciate everybody watching in the rowpaint.com studio right now. And Prater, Phil Steele, this is the magazine of magazines with college football. And I know the magazine world is shrinking ever so much, but the Phil Steele magazine, I feel like it's going to be the final one standing for college football and sports fans, man.
I hope so.
The Phil Steele, man. It's going to be tough for this sucker to go away and be in some type of digital form. Like during the season, and I'm sure you're the same way. Heck, I'm with you every day. I know you're this way, but I mean, you carry your Phil Steele college football magazine around with you like it's your car keys or a beef stick or whatever else you have constantly on you.
No beef stick. My car keys, yes. My car keys and my Phil Steele book are together 365 days. Neither one of them leave my briefcase. And so, yeah, I'm with this sucker 365. It's more than just a football season. You never know when you need to pull it out. It's like an encyclopedia. Back in the day, before you were born, there used to be this thing called encyclopedias that had information in it. Phil Steele gives us a new one every single year, and for that, I'm very grateful. And if he's the last one alive, I'm very thankful for that.
The reason I said beef stick there was I remember one time I was telling you how I don't like to put the shopping cart back in the cart corral at the grocery store unless it's within 15 feet.
I've heard you. I remember that you telling that's a definite character flaw on your part.
I put it up on the island or I put it up on the crosswalk. Or, I mean, on the sidewalk. I don't leave it in the middle of the parking lot. I don't take it all the way back to the cart corral.
You don't put it where they want you to put it.
No, it's too far, man.
Okay.
And but you were like, well, you never even, every time you go to the store, all you buy is beer and a beef stick. And I thought that was pretty damn
I said
funny.
that about you?
Yeah. You're like, what do you why are you even shopping? All you do is buy beer and beef sticks. And I was like, all right, touche, man. That's a good one. All right. So Phil Steele, he gets an hour with Andy Avalos.
It said an hour plus in his tweet.
Dang, man.
It said an hour plus. I went back and looked at a whole bunch of his other tweets. He didn't spend an hour plus with these other football coaches.
He didn't, huh?
He got an hour plus.
Do you think that's some type of strategy for Coach Avalos saying, you know what, we want to return more nationally prominent? And, maybe if it helps if I give Phil Steele an extra 20 or 30 minutes and get him juiced about this program, maybe all of a sudden, I don't know. No strategy there whatsoever. Just talking football.
Just talking football. Phil Steele's probably a lot of questions about this football team because you know what? We have a lot of questions too. We've had questions all offseason.
My first one, I think, if I was Phil Steele and I'm getting this conversation started, Prater, I think I would want to know about the overall depth. He talks about it so much, Avalos does, in the term he's created, dependable depth. I think in a big picture, I think Phil Steele would ask him, talk to me about the overall depth of this team. I don't think you focus too much on last year's 7-5. I don't think that's what Phil Steele does.
No.
He wants to focus on this year. Who do you have now? Who came in? Who are your key additions? That type of stuff. That, to me, was the first thing I thought of when I was trying to come up with what the heck would Phil Steele ask Andy Avalos.
Phil Steele, I believe, the most important thing that he does every year when he puts together his magazine, and he's got a chart right up front, and I rely on that chart an awful lot. And that chart has made me a little bit smarter over the years and maybe even won me a little cash over the years. It's his experience chart. How experienced is your football team? And I think in college football, that is vitally important. It's not the only piece of the puzzle, but it's a monster piece of the puzzle. And this certainly fits into the depth conversation as well. But I think he's going to start off his conversation with Andy Avalos talking about, Coach, let's talk about the experience factor on your football team. And they may go over the depth chart. They may go over the roster here. I did that homework myself. And if Phil Steele's saying, Prater, what's the experience factor on this Boise State football team? Well, you go back and look at last year's depth chart. You go back and look at last year's starting lineups from Boise State football. Boise State returns 8 or 9, depending on how you want to count it, returning starters on offense and 9 returning starters on defense. That's 17 or 18, depending on how you want to count them. That's going to be incredibly high in his experience chart. And I think he's going to play off that more than anything else with this football team. If a football team returns 17 or 18 of your 22 returning starters, I don't care what you did the season before. The expectations are to be better. So they're better than, 8, 9, 10 wins is where he's going to start with his conversation. I think that's where Phil Steele starts in terms of the experience. That's a good answer for Andy Avalos. That's a good avenue for Andy Avalos to promote this football team. This football team is highly, highly experienced.
What questions do you think Phil Steele's going to ask or ask Coach Avalos about Hank Bachmeier and his further development, his 4th year as a week 1 starter for this football program? I think that's the first one. He'll be the first one since Kellen, correct? Because Brett Rippon didn't start his first game. Ryan Finley did, if you remember. So he's the first 4-year starter since Kellen. That's a decade. What do you think the conversation there was like?
How do you get more production out of your 4th-year starting quarterback who's gotten a little bit better every single year, but he certainly isn't the difference maker, and it certainly isn't the buzz of college football and or even the Mountain West football. He's even got an image problem right here in Boise, Idaho. So, Coach, how do you get more production out of your 4th-year starting quarterback? Because I'm sure Phil Steele's got all kinds of past history in terms of the expectations of a starting quarterback at Boise State. I've charted every single quarterback at Boise State and their senior year going back to Bart Hendricks. For the most part, the expectations around here for a senior quarterback at Boise State is to win a lot of football games with massive production almost across the board. Every senior quarterback that's played here has had a monster football season individually and as a team. That's the expectation. So, Ballgame, I'm glad you asked, because I think that's exactly the next question he asks Hank Bachmeier. How do you squeeze more production out of a kid that's not showing the greatest amount of growth, production growth from season to season?
Unreal stats, too. I remember you breaking that down for me, just thinking of all the senior quarterbacks. I mean, you can even talk Taylor Tharp, who had a terrific senior year. His senior year, they won 10 games. I mean, it's just crazy to think that there hasn't been a quarterback as a senior or a 4th-year starter, because Hank, I guess technically is still a junior this year because he does have his COVID year still.
Well, he's technically
okay. He's a senior, but he has a COVID year, however that is. But we know this doesn't have to be his last year. With those other seniors that you mentioned, you knew it was the last year they had. They were exhausting all of their eligibility.
Yep.
Key additions. I think this is a big thing for Phil Steele too. Again, what have you added? Whether it's recruiting, now you have the transfer portal, which is a major thing. Junior college, whatever. Boise State went after a couple of JC defenders, a pass rusher, a down lineman, a defensive lineman, I should say, Prater. George Tarlis, the local kid. Ashton Genty, kind of the high-priced, shiny new toy in recruiting. What do you think Coach Avalos was talking about there? Because I'm sure Phil Steele asked, hey, key additions, who's new to this program that's going to help you?
Not the starting lineup difference makers, although they could turn into that. I think the additions that Andy Avalos has, and Phil Steele's going to find a unique answer coming out of Andy Avalos, because Andy Avalos doesn't dip a lot into the transfer portal. Boise State doesn't lose a lot to the transfer portal. A couple players here, pick up a couple players there. I think the transfer portal for Andy Avalos this offseason we used for dependable depth, that phrase that he likes to use. Off the top of my head, was there a transfer that we expect to start? I don't think there is.
I mean, George Tarlis is going to work his way in.
He's not going to start. He's not going to start.
Cade Beresford will start.
There you go.
Likely.
Okay, there's one. That's fair. Your right tackle, who played left tackle in the spring. He's penciled in for a starter. I'd be stunned if he didn't start. So there's a big one for me. I absolutely believe that. So he'll probably write about Cade Beresford a little bit and what he's brought to the offensive line. And then Phil Steele's going to look and say, whoa, you brought in a pretty good player from the Pac-12 to go along with 4 returning starters on your offensive line. He's going to give Boise State's offensive line a lot of expectations. His chart for offensive line is going to come out, and then Boise State's going to be, 30, 40, 50, whatever the number is. High expectations for this offensive line this football season.
Think about that. The only offensive lineman that they lost was the Osuji kid, the Rice transfer, who played most at right tackle. I know Will Ferrer played a little bit there all around the place. Oh, Jake Stetz, I'm sorry. He's no longer playing too, but Yeah, the line is better, dude. Yeah, I was
Well,
thinking
I
about
wouldn't say
that.
it's better.
It's experienced. Okay.
It's got more experience, and
I
it looks like it has potential.
I think it's got potential to be better. But who knows? Yeah. I mean, John Ojukwu, he needs to be better this year. There's no guarantee that he will be, but you would assume so. You'd like to think so. Yeah. KHG, you get your center back 2 years ago, had a nice year during COVID, but didn't play a snap last year.
Hasn't played football in a year and a half.
Yeah.
So,
there's still some question marks there, which leads me to my next question. Key losses. If I'm Phil Steele and I'm talking about to Andy Avalos, coach, where aren't you as good right now? Do you think? Where do you think if the struggles are going to happen, and they do with every team at some point, where do you think your struggles early on at this point are going to come from? And I don't know where Andy would have given him. I mean, maybe playmakers on offense, maybe depth in the backfield, a couple of things there. But I think that's something that Phil Steele wants to know too. Strengths, but yeah, also weaknesses, Prater. I think that's a big one also.
I don't think that there's any how did you phrase it? I mean, in terms of depth and
Depth, key additions,
key losses,
key departures.
key
man.
departures.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Shaq.
Oh, is easily the number one.
But I don't think he'll be missed. I don't.
Yeah, I think you're an animal.
I mean, we're going to miss the emotional aspect of it. We're going to miss the great plays. We're going to miss watching him. All I care about is production. I mean, this is a business just like National Football League. So one guy's gone, and now I just need to replace his production. I'm not going to get emotional about it. And I think Boise State can replace the Shaq production. It might take two guys. It might take Hank Bachmeier being a better football team or a better football player. But I think I'm not intimidated by the loss of Shakir in terms of football production. Emotionally, yeah. But I don't think the loss of Khalil Shakir is going to impact this football team. And if Boise State has another 7-5 football season, I'm certainly not going to stand up there and say they missed Khalil Shakir.
Okay, I'll give you this. Do I expect the offense to be better this year? I'm talking yards per game. I'm talking points per game. I'm talking third down efficiency. I'm talking cleaning up some of the penalties. I think I'd say yes. And you're right. Shaq won't be a part of it, but I still think they miss having an NFL kid out there. I don't know if they have an NFL player as a playmaking receiver. We'll see. But I know a lot of people like a lot of people on this squad.
Yeah, and you don't need an NFL wide receiver. You just need 3 or 4 really good ones that are productive in college football. And to answer your question, will this offense be better? You say yes. I'm not going to go there. My answer would be it depends on the health of George Holani, period. End of conversation. If George Holani plays 12, 13 games, then this offense will be better, more productive, and better. If he doesn't, you saw what happened last year.
If you don't have him, I mean, you're looking at Ashton Genty, Tyler Crow, and Tyquan Tyler, and is the Smith kid still on the team? Danny Smith, we've heard about him. Yeah, the running back depth for me is a huge issue.
George Holani, I'm not even worried about the depth. I'm worried about George Holani.
Just George Holani. Yeah.
I'm worried about George Holani.
They got to keep him healthy.
It's either yes or no. George Holani is going to play and be a difference maker, or George Holani is not, and this offense and this running attack is going to really, really struggle.
You could ask Andy Avalos one question about the team this year moving forward. What question are you going to ask him? Text us 208-424-9300 to the Cloverdale Plumbing text line. Mike Prater, he has a Heisman vote.
Not necessarily.
What are you talking about? You lost your Heisman vote?
Well, you know, it has to be renewed every single year. I told you this last year.
You never told me that.
Because you said last year I had a Heisman vote, and I said no, I don't.
He tells you that every year, Johnny.
I tell you that every single year.
When do you know? August.
So usually about halfway through the season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Prater, did he end up voting for this next topic? JP's got news coming up, and a former Heisman Trophy winner has changed his name. Wonder if he's going to have his Heisman changed to match the new name. We'll get Prater's opinion on this when we come back. JP, get us that news. Prater in the ball game. Idaho Sports Talk, KTIK, the ticket.
This is Idaho Sports Talk with Prater in the ball game on Sports Radio 95.3 FM and 1350 AM. The Ticket.